This 15-year-old girl is a terrifying killer that bragged about what she did in her diary. Alyssa Bustamante was literally born into chaos and trouble. Her parents were literally cousins that got pregnant with Alyssa when they were only teenagers themselves. They were both substance users. Her mom was neglectful. Her dad was abusive. When Alyssa was 9 years old, her dad was in prison and her mom was just high all of the time. So she was actually removed out of the home with her 3 younger siblings and placed in the custody of her grandparents. Her grandparents really wanted to give these kids like a good fresh start. So they moved them from California to a small town in Missouri called St. Martin's. But at that point, it was almost too late for Alyssa. Alyssa was only 9 years old, but she was in serious need of some therapy. She was super hateful and aggressive and angry and violent. And the older Alyssa got, the more she rebelled. She started dressing in like an emo aesthetic. She was posting some like really disturbing things on MySpace, which was like the popular social media at the time. It could have all been a cry for help. I mean, like on one hand, having really strong emotions as a teenage girl, Alyssa is like 14, 15 at this point, that's normal. But what isn't normal is around this time, Alyssa started to tell her friends that she was fantasizing about what it would be like to unalive someone. And then tragically on October 21st, 2009, Alyssa made those dark, twisted fantasies come true. That was the day that Alyssa planned that she was going to take someone's life. Early in the day, Alyssa went into the wooden area behind her home and dug a hole that would serve as a grave for her victim. Then as it started to get dark out, Alyssa's twisted plan went into effect. Alyssa, who remembers only 15 years old at the time, brought her 6-year-old sister Emma out to play. Alyssa then instructed her 6-year-old sister Emma to go 4 houses down and invite their 9-year-old neighbor Elizabeth Olten out to play. Little 6-year-old Emma was so young and naive, she probably thought that it was cool that her older sister wanted to play with her and her friend Elizabeth. I mean, Alyssa was always kind of mean and kind of abusive towards Emma, and now she wanted to play with her. Emma had no idea that what she was actually doing was luring one of her best friends to be brutally unalived by her own big sister. Elizabeth Olten's mother didn't even want Elizabeth to go out to play because they were about to settle down for dinner. But you know how little girls are, they were really persistent about wanting to play together. So eventually, Elizabeth's mother reluctantly agreed as long as she would be back in 1 hour for dinner. But tragically, little 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten would never make it back home. When Elizabeth and Emma came running, back to Alyssa and Emma's home to play with Alyssa, Alyssa immediately ordered Emma to go home, and then she lured little Elizabeth into the woods where she had dug her grave a couple hours earlier. And that is where 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante brutally unalived 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten. What Alyssa had just done seemed to barely even faze her. She excitedly ran home and wrote about it in her diary. I'm gonna put what Alyssa wrote in her diary on the screen now. She describes what she had just done moments earlier to this little 9-year-old girl that she knew. It was one of her sister's best friends. They played together all the time. Elizabeth only lived 4 houses down. And then after she wrote what she did to her, she wrote, "I don't know how to feel at the moment. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the, oh my God, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I gotta go to church now. LOL." There aren't even words to describe that. It's horrifying and disgusting. When Elizabeth never made it home at 6 p.m. for dinner, her mom immediately knew that something terrible happened. And within 24 hours, the investigators learned that the last person to be seen with 9-year-old Elizabeth was her 15-year-old neighbor. The investigators searched Alyssa's room while she was at school. They told, her parents that I think that she was just a witness at that point. And that is when they found Alyssa's diary. And it was full of really, really dark and disturbing entries. But the investigators were most interested about the diary entry that was made on the day that Elizabeth went missing. and they saw that it had been completely scribbled over in pen to hide what Alyssa had written that day. They were able to recover what had been written before it was scribbled over, and that was the entry I just read to you. And that is when Alyssa was finally brought into questioning for the disappearance and possible unaliving of Elizabeth Olten. I truly think that Alyssa thought that she was smart and covered her tracks and that she was going to get away with it. She seemed not nervous at all being questioned by these detectives until they mentioned her diary. And that is when her story completely changed from I have no idea what happened to yes, I was playing with Elizabeth, we were playing in the woods, and Elizabeth had accidentally fallen, hit in her head, and passed away. And that is when the investigators asked Alyssa one more question. And Alyssa's response to that question completely broke her grandmother, who was in the room. I mean, this poor woman, she thought that she was only bringing her granddaughter in as a witness. She had no idea what her granddaughter could be capable of. She thought that this was the little girl that she had saved, and to learn that she was the reason why their little missing neighbor was missing, it completely broke her, and I'll show you that footage now.
Why did she die? 9-year-old girls don't just die.
She fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Yeah. Oh. Oh my God. Oh.
That is when Alyssa made a full confession and she was sentenced to life in prison. But if you think that's where this case ends, you are sadly mistaken, because there's a really, really recent, disturbing, dark update in this case. But before I get into that disgusting update, I do want to take a moment to talk about Elizabeth and the other people that were affected in this case. I cannot stop thinking about Elizabeth's poor mother and Alyssa's little sister. I couldn't even begin to imagine the regret and the guilt. I mean, Elizabeth's mother didn't even want her to go out to play that day. And then Alyssa's little sister, she was only 6, and she was the one used to lure her friend to be unalived. She would be about 21 years old now, and both of them, everyone affected in this case, are definitely in my thoughts. I'm completely heartbroken for both of them, and I hope everyone in this case knows that it's not their fault. The only person at fault here is, of course, Alyssa Bustamante. Elizabeth Olten was only 9 years old when her life was stolen from her in the most terrible and terrifying way. This was a little girl who loved animals and music. She was a huge Taylor Swift and Hannah Montana fan. And, she was really excited at the time, and her only big worry was that she had just scored a lead in the School Musical. And then her life was just stolen from her in such a senseless, terrifying way. It's in remembrance for the way that Elizabeth Olten's life was stolen from her that truly horrifies people with the recent update in this case. In 2021, a new bill was passed in Missouri that gives any minor that was sentenced to life in prison a chance of parole after 15 years, which means Alyssa has a chance for parole in July of 2024, which is now. I'm putting this video up on July 1st, 2024. This bill obviously came with a lot of criticism and backlash, especially regarding Alyssa Bustamante. So a state representative actually made a statement saying that this bill was not created for minors that committed crimes like Alyssa, and that it should not and would not apply to her. Personally, I don't think that she has a chance of getting out anytime soon, if ever, but I guess we will have to wait and see. If you watched to the end of this video, thank you so much for listening to Elizabeth Olten's story. I feel like so often she's lost in her own case. So if you watch to the end, let me know, and let me know if you're still liking the longer videos we're doing. And I will see you guys tomorrow with 2 new videos.